Hello, everyone. Welcome to presentation today about how to rock your college application activities list. The start now. My name is Fei Zan, the founder of Booming Minds. This is the company that was founded by a group of certified educators. In the past 20 years, we provided high quality online education and college consulting services to all 7th to 12th grade. Tonight, we're so honored to provide a presentation for students and parents and all high school parents. After presentation, we have breakout room for Q&A in English and Chinese at the end. You can choose your preferred language. 在讲座之后，我们会有家长回答环节，请大家选择中文或英文进入不同的 breakout room. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sanika Mahajan. I'm an advisor for several courses with Booming Minds, and I'm also a very recent Harvard graduate. So I just graduated in May of 2021 with a degree in social studies and global health.
And hello, my name is Nicole Butterfield. I'm no longer on mute. I spent 30 years in independent schools as an educator and on the admissions teams. And I have 3 children who've been through high school and into college. And I'm really excited to speak with all of you this evening. I work as a senior consultant for Booming Minds.
Hi, everybody. My name is Simone Ding. I'm also an advisor with Booming Minds. I have a degree from the Wharton Business School and also an MBA from Columbia Business School. Currently, I'm also doing interviewing, admissions interviews for the University of Pennsylvania. Hoping to work with you in the future.
So I just wanted to show you this. It is the Common Application Activities List template for just one activity. It's for some of you, this will be a preview because you won't start filling these out until well through your junior year. But think of it for the moment as a rubric. This is what to look forward to. And thinking of it as a place to start, you have these very short opportunities to describe an activity that the student participates in, and then to highlight the student's strengths while explaining what that activity is. So we're going to just take a look at a sample of what that might look like with the number of characters permitted. So on the before column, a lot of students fill these out. There's a drop-down menu for the activity type. In this case, the student has chosen athletics, JV, or varsity. And in the before column, the student wrote varsity team member and captain. The organization is the Jefferson High School basketball. And the description says that the student played point guard, was the captain in 11th grade. And then there are 2 sentences. We were state champions in 2019. I won most improved and MVP. There's nothing wrong with those, but they're not doing as much work for the student as they can. So one of the things that we coach students to do is to really punch up that activities list so you can highlight your strengths and your accomplishments. So by putting starting point guard, 9th to 11th, and captain, 11th, in the position and leadership description, the student's able to save some space to later on in the description below explain a little bit more about what he or she did. Practiced and played hard daily. These are active verbs, right? Supported teammates and led them to state championship in 2019, right? That's the junior year where the student was the captain of the team. Won most improved in 9th and MVP in 10th and 11th. That gives the admissions team a real sense of exactly what was going on for the student and really punches up the achievement of that student. So this is something that we work with students on all the time. But before you can write these descriptions, you have to do some activities. And so we're really going to talk to you about building up your students' activities list by engaging them in activities throughout high school.
Before we begin talking about some of the activities that demonstrate good qualities to colleges and in applications, we wanted to hear from you. And you might have seen the poll that Jennifer put in the chat already asking this exact question. So which characteristics do you think are important for student success, both academically and personally? And Jennifer, if you could put that in the chat one more time in case any of you didn't have the chance to fill it out, that would be great. And we'll give you a couple of minutes to finish entering a few characteristics or as many as you would like to. In the meanwhile, I'll also share your responses as they come up. So let me take a second to pull that up. So as the responses continue to come in, you'll see a word cloud come up with some of the adjectives that you all shared. And the bigger the word is, the more people thought it was important. So a couple of big ones seem to be openness. So you all think students should be open, and that can mean so many things. We'll talk more about that. Passionate, hardworking, self-motivated, and we'll hear a little bit more from Nicole about authentic engagement and how students can be engaged and passionate and motivated for the activities that we'd like them to be part of. A couple others, persistence. I see that in a couple of different places. Teamwork, definitely up there, and we'll talk about that when we get to leadership. Curious, self-disciplined, goal-driven, have ideas and take feedback, thoughtful. So we'll give it another maybe 20 seconds for any new words to come in. Looks like maybe a lot of you filled this out already, so we really appreciate that. All right. So we'll move back to the presentation now that we've kind of looked at what we think is important. Oh, some new words are coming in, so I'll share it one more time. There we go. It looks like open is still up there. There's some about having a good mindset, about being honest, about being mature. So those are some new words that are also really important. All right. So these are all really important characteristics, and we're so happy to hear from you about what you think is important, just because at Booming Minds, consultants will work directly with families to make sure that we're working from your knowledge of your student and based on the values that you hold as a family as well. But for now, we'd also like to share some of our own thoughts on academic and personal qualities that are important. So some of those include what you all put on the screen: curiosity, persistence, and resilience, passion for what they're doing. Study skills is one, so just the ability to read and comprehend material, as well as then translate that into studying skills for a test or exam. And then specific subject area skills, so improving and strengthening your students' skills in an area like a search in science or in writing, or in specifically writing for social studies or history. Personal qualities are also important and can really show in academic or in college essays and in your activities. So confidence, leadership, and collaboration go together hand in hand. Self-advocacy, so the ability to show what your strengths are, as well as ask questions and find success that way. And kindness and gratitude are things that we hope for students to maintain even while they're striving for the best. And as I mentioned, these are all things that we would like to develop in partnership with families.
Great. And speaking of questions, I want to encourage you to write any questions you may have for us in the chat as we go along. We'll try to get to those in the breakout rooms at the end. So I wanted to speak with you a little bit about the way we work to help students and families develop an action plan. No matter what grade you're in, we can meet you exactly where you are. We will assess and address any strengths that your student has and any gaps that the student may want to fill between now and the college process. And even if you're in 11th grade, there's still time for you to develop your skills and develop some plans for the future that you can use in your college applications, right? You have a year and a summer ahead of you. And we definitely do a retrospective review for students who are in 10th and 11th grades, looking at what you've already done in 9th and 10th grade respectively, to figure out what do we want to emphasize, right? Because you'll come to us with whatever background you have, and then we will work our hardest with you to try to figure out what goals you want to set that are rooted in your values and that will support healthy student development and engagement. Okay.
So what goes into an action plan, like Nicole mentioned, which is founded in the things that you would like your child to do? One thing is leadership. That's the first category that we kind of place these activities into. Leadership can involve many things. It can be both formal and informal in clubs in school, sports and athletics, or even in your community, like religious or community centers that you're involved in as a family. The second is competitions. So this also spans a wide variety of different things, whether they're academic or extracurricular competitions. And these can demonstrate your students' prowess, both in subject areas and also in other skills that might be important in colleges. Summers are also really important. So making sure that summers demonstrate your students' desire to enrich their learning and follow their interests. And then finally, interest-based activities. So just having your students engage in what they enjoy throughout the school year. And we'll talk more about how to fit that in your students' busy schedules.
So you may or may not have heard the term authentic engagement, but it's definitely something that gets tossed around in admissions committee meetings because colleges are looking for students who are authentically engaged in their activities. Okay, so rather than just scrambling together a bunch of resume items, they're looking for students who really love what they're doing, right? So I wanted to just talk a little bit about authentic engagement and also explain why we actually think it's a great thing for students and families to think about because we want your child to authentically love what they're doing because that will be something that will be easy to talk about in an admissions interview and write about in a college essay, but it will also ensure that your student is having the best possible high school academic and extracurricular experience possible so that the student can really commit themselves to whatever they're doing in a way that's really from the heart. So it's important to support your student doing the thing that he or she loves. So some examples of things that you might think about outside of the classroom, it really can be anything. What if your student decided on their own to build something, right? A boat, a robot, a drone, a birdhouse, right? It could be anything that the student is interested in. Or what if the student wanted to trailblaze and their school didn't offer something and so they decided they were going to go after that themselves outside of school. So we find ways for your student to link their passions to their interests and find a way to just get lost in whatever activity they're doing so that later on they can speak about it and write about it with a lot of authority and enthusiasm.
So let's go ahead and get started by talking about some of the categories that go into that action plan in terms of the activities that your student can be part of and some tips that we have for what you should and shouldn't do to develop your students' activity list in each of these categories. And you'll get a chance to read any of these tips in both do and don't, but I'll go over some of the most important ones out loud. So when it comes to leadership activities, make sure that your student is participating both continuously and consistently in that activity. So what that means is essentially making sure that it's something that they spend at least a couple of years developing their skills in and growing into leadership positions in, just to show that they have continuous passion for that activity as well as a consistent work ethic. Also, make sure that while they're engaged in leadership activities, they do show humility and also work as a team player to show that they can also collaborate well. And then finally, I would say an important one is being able to take the initiative to find leadership opportunities where they're not necessarily created. So maybe in solo events and activities, there are still ways that students can be leaders. So I've seen students that have gone to college with me create their own community gardens in their area, which is not necessarily a formal leadership experience, but can be framed as one in your applications and essays. I've seen students take part in a smaller group that's working in their religious organization, but then that can lead to leadership opportunities as well. Some things not to do are, of course, to focus only on yourself and not show that ability to be a team player and a collaborator, and also to not try to do too many activities or become a leader in way too many clubs, especially if they're not something that you actually care about, because that will show and your lack of engagement or enthusiasm will be clear to college counselors as well as the application or the admissions officers. Finally, this sounds kind of funny, but we've seen people even run negative ad campaigns or work against their peers in other ways that we don't want to encourage, because we want to make sure students are still maintaining kind and thoughtful personalities while they're working on their activities.
So competitions are a way for students to shine on their applications, and also a way for them to delve into their interests in more depth. So I want to speak to you a little bit about competitions, do's and don'ts. One thing is to think about how entering a competition might emphasize a student's strengths, and also might pair well with their academic work in a way that's a little unexpected. So for example, if you have someone who really loves science, what if they wrote a science fiction story and submitted it to a writing contest? That shows a kind of versatility and breadth in a student that colleges might particularly admire. We support our students in a wide variety of competitions that both draw upon their strengths and also encourage them to stretch themselves into areas that they may not have already considered. So we want to think about, as Sonika was talking about, sort of not spreading yourself too thin. A competition is a really great way to get a lot of value into your resume by standing out in an area that you may not have stood out before, or in something that's related to the coursework that you love the best. And of course, it's really important with a competition, if you decide to participate, to know that there are no guarantees. It's important not to do too many, but to really choose them carefully and choose the ones that are best for you. It's also a great opportunity to show persistence and learn from failure. If you don't win a competition the first time you try, to go back and learn from what you did and improve the next time, right? So that's another way that we're developing the whole person and helping them deal with adversity as well as success. Okay. Here are some recent competitions that our students at Booming Minds have participated in. We've had some excellent results, both at the regional and national levels in these award programs. And there's really something for everyone here. And again, if you don't think of your student as a writer or as someone who could potentially try a history competition, we might support your student in surprising you, right? Maybe your student is interested in that and just never thought of it before. So, so we have everyone from, kids who love to write all the time, to kids who really have never written something creative before. I like to talk about my science students who do really step up and write some amazing science fiction, and also the students who love Model Congress or write for the student newspapers. They can do really well in journalism competitions. And I think, Sonika, you could maybe say a little bit about the Future Business Leaders competition and what that's like.
Yeah, so that's essentially an organization that's nationwide, but often has chapters. And we basically support students in competing in business competitions, and there's a large variety of those as well. Some of them are test taking, some of them are focused on presentation skills, as well as business planning and other soft skills that go into business. And so there's like a variety of competitions that are good for any student, and it also comes with the ability to travel to conferences, hopefully in the future, once they're in person again. So those are really cool as well.
Great, and please note that on our website, we're always adding new competitions. The team is always on the lookout for great opportunities for our students. So please know there are even more coming soon. So check out our website if you have an opportunity. Also on our website, you'll find more information and some of our flyers that go a little bit more in depth into these different competitions that we offer. Students are supported and coached by experts in the fields where these competitions are based, and they're really great opportunities for the students to shine. Some of them are done also by application. So we'll tell you if your student is qualified to participate. And if your student isn't yet qualified, we'll help that student get there if they can't.
Okay, so summers are another category that we focus on because it's always important for students to continue their learning and their development of leadership into the summer. A couple of things that are important to do include planning early, so maybe even in December, because a lot of applications for things like programs and research might close in January or February. And also making a long-term plan along with that for things that might be possible for you to participate in for several summers in the future. And that can always change as you go along, but it could be good to have an original plan, which is something that we support students in doing. Another thing that is very valuable is to seek opportunities that are also outside of these formal programs, like research or summer program applications. So for example, reaching out to local organizations, companies, and even college professors and lecturers for opportunities that they might have that aren't necessarily formal. And we support students in reaching out as well. A couple of things not to do that we recommend are not just attending summer courses, although that could be part of a fulfilling summer. And of course, doing the same types of things every single summer without building new skills or growing into new leadership positions. So these are some of the summer courses that are offered. And as we mentioned, it's definitely valuable to take a summer course as part of a fulfilling summer. A couple of things that I want to mention about this list is that we provide very small classes and high engagement over the summer. So students can really work on developing the skills that they need to go into the next school year prepared, as well as potentially engage some of these same skills in competitions.
Great. So we're going to talk a little bit more about interest-based activities that your student might be engaged in. And it's important, I'm sure, as you know, when you have a student who has a busy school day and some after-school programming already in place, to be realistic about your time commitments. And one thing you may consider is if adding a monthly activity might work out well. So are there opportunities to do community service once a month in your neighborhood, for example? And does your student want to try something new, right? And make an effort to look for something that might connect again with an interest that they have. For example, sometimes students get together and form their own club, or they take on their own community service project that's their own idea. I've known groups of students to get together and decide, you know, we really love kids and there are kids in the hospital, and hospitals are kind of gloomy places. So let's make some tie-dyed pillowcases and wrap them up with a couple of activity books and deliver them to some local hospitals. Like, that's a kind of thing that can be done. It's a very homegrown project. And all you need is a couple of friends to join you. And there you have an interest-based activity and you've given back to your community. So it can be something very simple like that, that doesn't take a huge amount of time, but can have a really big impact. And by the time your student is a high school sophomore, there may be an opportunity to start a club. And it's always great to look at the offerings at your school. I know there can be tons of offerings already available, but sometimes a club that your student would like to join doesn't exist yet. And so then the student gets to not only pursue their interest, but also show leadership. So it's a way to bring those things together really nicely. It's just really important not to start a club and then abandon it, right? So getting a sense of whether there's interest, whether there are a few other students who might want to join is really important. And it's also important to engage your school guidance office and look for opportunities that are available at your school. Like, don't walk by those places where all those resources are. So we do coach students to advocate for themselves, right, in their own school communities and find out what's available there. And also we do caution them about spreading yourself too thin. Again, you kind of hear these themes that come up every time we talk about one of these, because it is really important for the student to prioritize. And that's something that we can really help with, is figuring out, you know, what is the most important thing. And are you authentically engaged? Are you not doing things that you love because you think you should be in certain clubs because they're resume builders? Like, that's a conversation that's important to have. So I wanted to, I think, go on to the next thing. I want to turn things over to Simone, who is going to speak with you a little bit about an incredibly great activity that a lot of students are involved in, athletics.
Hi. So I want to talk to you about athletic recruiting. If you do have a child playing a varsity sport, and those are listed on the right-hand side, make sure that you don't forego the opportunity to go through athletic recruiting. Okay. The Ivy League sponsored sports are highlighted in bold. But as you can see, there are lots of choices. And if your child already plays one, make sure that they do continue to play that sport all through high school, to give yourself a great opportunity to get into a great college first thing. So athletics is the #1 value add activity in the college admissions process, beside large donations and legacy status. And the benefits can be significant because you can get commitment to the admissions 2 years in advance. That means you can get a written or verbal commitment from the school starting June 15th of your 10th grade, 2 years ahead of the formal application process. And all through the process, you are actually negotiating with the schools of your choice instead of waiting blindly for an admissions decision to come out by the end of middle of senior year. And that really takes the pressure off of your child all through their junior and senior years academically. And another benefit is that 25% to 40% of all the athletic recruits do receive significant scholarships and or financial aid awards. So that is very important to think about. And even beyond that, once your child gets into the college, having a team's support really eases their transition into the college life. And that's really, really important because we do see a lot of children, once they go into college, the transition isn't that smooth, they do need support from their peers, and it would be really, really good when they have socially and academically, they have a team behind them. And a lot of these programs, athletic programs at the Division I level, they have academic support for the athletes as well. And even beyond that, having to join a varsity sport at the college level will build strongly when they are looking for a career option and network. Now, there are some myths that we want to debunk about athletic recruiting. You really do not have to be a nationally ranked star to be recruited. Most students who get recruited are, excels at the sectionals or state levels, and they're perfectly, perfectly good to get into great, great colleges. These
Sorry, we're having a technical issue. Simone, you became muted all of a sudden.
Okay, sorry. Okay, I'll start that. The top ranked academic schools do not necessarily recruit the top ranked athletes, right? As you will find out, some of the best schools in the country are Division III schools, which means you don't have to be the top 100 ranked athletes to get into those schools. And you do not need to stay with the varsity team once you're in college. Of course, that is unless you want to take all 4 years of assigned scholarship. But without that written commitment, you're not required to stay with the team all 4 years. You do, however, need to show that you have a long-term commitment to the sport historically. The other advisors also previously mentioned that anything you do, you want to make sure that you've done it more than a year or two, right? In order to show that you are really loving this activity and you have a long-term commitment to it. You also do need to show that you are improving and you have potential to continue to improve. And also you do need to meet the minimum academic standard required by the college, even though the requirement will be significantly less stringent than if you're applying regular admissions. So some of the consultation services we can offer you is to understand the athletic recruiting process a little bit better. We can help you develop a recruitment profile for your child and target specific D1, D2, D3 schools. We will help you select the best ones most suitable for you. And we will teach you how to contact with the coaches, how to negotiate commitment letters, and how to negotiate scholarships. Even if you don't get a recruiting spot, right? If you've played the sport long enough and do very well with it, you can still get a walk-on support negotiated with the coach. So all those are very important opportunities for a child. So we want to make sure that you're not letting go of that. All right, back to you.
right, so this is a chance for all of you to quickly reflect on where you think your student is at right now and what you might want to see them do in the future and what they might like to do in the future. So I believe Jennifer is going to place a link in the chat once more, just a really quick Google form for you to fill out at your leisure. So right now would be great if you'd like to. That just asks about what your child is currently doing in terms of extracurricular activities, both at school and outside of school, and then things that you might want to see in the future. There's also a space for any questions or other comments you might have. So we'll give you a couple of minutes to do that and play some music in the meantime.
Oh, and sorry, Sanika, will you also go ahead and put the activities list up on the next slide?
Yeah, absolutely. So what I'm going to put up on the slide is just a list of Common App activities in terms of the categories that are provided. So when you fill out the Common App activities list, each activity is sorted into one of these several categories. So this might help you when you're looking at what your student is doing and might do in the future.
In the street and no, I can't see without you. Million bad dudes follow you into any room, 'cause I can't live without you. It gets weird when you talk about it. In mind, smile for the photo ID. Inside, that's where we can be free. Behind is watches sipping on lean. My mind's clean, that's how it's supposed to be. Bitch, you better sleep too fast. I want my money back, but I can't deal without you. Stuck behind your beat, it kicks my feet up. You told me, but I can't dream
promise I'll be right outside. Give me a minute and you'll see I'm not the regular guy. I got a trick that makes me always wanna roll the dice. If they say we will make it, tell them I ain't taking advice. And I'll be over when we're older, waiting at your door. I only leave.
So we want to encourage you to complete this self-assessment either now or at your leisure. It's completely optional, but I want to explain a little bit more about it. It is a way that we actually begin with a lot of our students and families to assess where you are right now and what some of your hopes are for the future, right? So working with a student, taking this Common App activities categories menu, this is the drop-down menu. When you're looking at that little box that says activity 1, these are the ones that they give you to choose from. And at the very bottom, you'll see it says other club / activity, right? So that's where if you made up your own club, you have a chance to write about that. But I wanted to highlight a few of these categories because they're relatively recent compared to when we were in our generation applying to colleges. First of all, the Common App was not nearly the powerful tool that it is now. And colleges weren't always thinking about all of these different types of activities. I think they had a more limited view of extracurriculars. Things in the arts and things in athletics were pretty much dominant. But if you look here, community service, of course, in many high schools is a very robust part of the student's life. Some have a requirement, but some don't. And so if your student is already participating in community service that is required, that's not really going to make your student stand out all that much. But if your student decides to do something above and beyond the requirement, that very well might. So I also wanted to mention this idea of family responsibilities, right? Because that's a great opportunity for you as a family to do something at home that can benefit your child. So if your child does not have any chores, right? It's a great time to say, hey, you know what? This will help you get into college, right? If you help us out around the house. It's really true because it does show a certain level of personal responsibility, of being a team player within the family. And actually some students enjoy doing things like learning how to cook a meal or something like that. I actually recently was speaking with a student who thought that family responsibility is going to be her favorite part to write about in her activities list because she did learn to cook during the pandemic and now serves meals to her family and takes a lot of pride in doing that. So you never know when a chore might become a passion. So also I wanted to mention the idea of paid work, which is something that colleges are now paying a bit more attention to. So honestly, any kind of work can really help your application stand out, whether it's an unpaid or paid internship, whether it's a job that your student is able to find locally that either connects to an area of interest or is simply a way for your student to earn some money and get some real world experience, right? That's actually a great one that can sometimes be overlooked. And I do want to encourage you to think about this menu of categories, both in terms of what your student does right now and what your student might like to do in the future, not just in the future in high school, but also in college, right? If your student, some high schools don't offer all of these things and your community might not either. So it's fair to say, oh, I think my student really wants to do a certain type of dance or robotics or any of these things. And if there isn't an opportunity that exists at the school, like that's that time to think about, okay, so where can we find that? And our consulting services can help you do that as well and get them started a little bit earlier so they don't have to wait for college to get involved in some of these areas. Okay. Okay, so in terms of our college application consultation services, back before when we were speaking about the action plan, that's really where we begin. And it begins as early as 9th grade or as late as junior year, and sometimes even very, very beginning of senior year. But we do encourage you to get started early. And because if you start early, there's just more opportunity to work on improving the students' performance across the curriculum and gaining more experience in extracurriculars and outside of school, identifying strengths and interests and passions that the student can pursue. And we do offer comprehensive support through the high school career and also through the college process, right? So starting with, how are things going as you're making that transition to high school, and ending with the selection of your school, right? And we want to make sure that your student gets a lot of individual attention through the process. This is not a cookie cutter kind of program. It's a very personalized service that we offer. We get to know the family, we get to know the student, and we really take a lot of pleasure in guiding you through the process and helping you to set goals, find your best fit schools, and chase your dreams.